Alright, in today's video we'll be going over how to create orthographic drawings like this. I'm not going to worry about an auxiliary view for now. That'll be a second part. So what you want to do is construct the drawings based off a measurement of the found objects in front of you. In your case, it might be boxes, it might be something else. In my case, for this example, I'm going to try to simulate it with measurements of a 3D model, but not actually use the 3D model to draw the lines or extract lines from it. Okay, hopefully that'll make sense. But what we're going to be attempting to do is creating orthographic drawings based off of something in front of your face that's not 3D modeled, which is a little bit more difficult. And you are going to start with the top plan view and from there extract the side views, taking measurements as needed. So if I turn off the construction lines, you'll see there's a top view, there's a side view constructed from that plan. Or the top view, and then there's another side view that's constructed directly from the plan like this. It's a little bit confusing because this side view is actually tilted sideways. I'll make sense of that as we progress. But for now, you'll notice that there's line weights. There's these hidden lines, which are lines that you can't see from the top view or side view, but they're actually projected behind, so you dash them in to understand that they're actually there, but they're not visible to you. Okay, so turn the construction lines back on. You'll notice we have a heavy line weight, medium line weight, a light line weight, and extra light line weight. Those are 4 line weights. You can add more if you'd like. And then I have hidden line weights, which are the dashed lines I mentioned before, and then construction lines, which are different types of dashed lines you see here that are in gray. Okay, so let's go ahead and create a new file to attempt to create the layer system, the page system, and then actually draw the orthographic views. All right, so we're going to go ahead and create a new file. Go to File, go to New, Small Objects, Inches. Okay, so once I open up the file, I place this model. You will not have a 3D model. I'm using this for reference sake only because I don't have a physical model in front of me. What I do have, though, is measurements of all the sides of the boxes. Again, this is just for reference for me. It's on the box layer. You will not have a box layer, so just be aware of that. So the first thing I want to do is set up my layout page. So I'll go ahead and I will create, I'll just get into top view. I'll go ahead and create a 24-inch by 24-inch box, or square, I should say. Just type 24 inches like that. And I'm going to go ahead and move this down like that. Okay, and I'm also going to create a new layer and call it, let's say, box outline. Okay, and I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to lock this so you can't move it. Change object layer. There we go. So now I can't select it. The next thing I'm going to do is create my layout page, just going up to commands and typing layout. 24-inch by 24 inches. Okay, great. And then I'm just going to adjust this by double clicking into it. I'm going to zoom in and I'm just going to align this square that I created because we know it's 24 inches by 24 inches. And that should be close enough. Now, if you don't use the 24-inch by 24-inch box, that's fine. I'm just using it for a reference. You don't need it. So if I turn this off, you really don't need it. I'm using it for reference. So coming back to top view. So what you're going to need to do now is create the different layers. So we had a few layers of line weights, 4. So we're going to create 1, 2, 3, 4 layers of different line weights. We'll call this, heavy line weight, medium, light, and then extra light. Next thing we're going to do is create a hidden line and then construction line. And I'll explain what that is in a bit. So now we're going to go and set up their layer color. So heavy line will be black. This one should be something like a blue. Light will be something like an orange. Extra light will be lavender. Why not? Hidden should be gray or dark gray. Construction line will be gray. So next thing I want to do is change the print color, which is this right here. If I expand it out, you'll see there, right there, it says print color. I'm going to change these all to black. The only one I'm going to change to gray is going to be the construction line. So dark gray. So we need to change the print width. Now, this is something you're going to just have to adjust on your own and figure out what makes sense. I'm just taking a temp. Don't necessarily just copy me. You might have to test it out depending on the scale of your drawing, the scale of your object, whatever makes sense for you. You typically want to do print tests for this type of stuff. And now for hidden and construction lines, you want to change the line type. So you see this is line type. These are all set to continuous, which means they're just straight lines with no interruptions. If you go to hidden and click line type, you can go to the hidden line type right there. I'll give you a dash line. Construction type, I'm going to create a center line, and that'll be my construction line type. Okay, so we set up all the layers. That should be simple for now. You can obviously adjust it when need be, but for now, this is what I'm starting off with. Okay, so the next thing we want to do is actually start drawing. I'm actually going to create a new layer and call it active. I'm just going to move it up by this move up arrow right here, and I'm just going to activate active as my main line. I'm going to change this as something that's obvious when I see it. Like I'm going to make it yellow. You pick whatever you want. I know when I look at this 3D object, or let me just look at it in 3D so I understand it more three-dimensionally. I'll go ahead and make this. All right, so I made it in Arctic view so I can see it a little bit better. Again, you won't have a 3D model, but so the way I'm understanding this, you're arranging your boxes in any direction that you want to create a complex object. And really what you want to do is draw the top view first. So you can see that you have the main 4-inch box, you have a 2-inch box on top of it. To the side of it, touching the ground, you have this other 3.5-inch box, and then also a 3-inch box to the left of it. And inside the 4-inch box, you have another box, which is a 1-inch box. So what you don't see in this view is that 1-inch box. So that's going to be seen as a hidden line, and you'll understand it when we get to drawing it. Okay, so I'm going to try to attempt to draw something like this. So in front of you, you're looking at something relatively top view like I am here. It probably looks something like this in your real perspective with your eyes. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and go to top view again. What I'm going to do is I'm going to attempt to draw the 4-inch square. So 4 inches by 4 inches, just by using the rectangle command right here, you get a 4-inch square. Okay, I'm not going to worry about line weights right now. We'll set that up a little bit later. Inside of it, you have the 1 inch by 1 inch. So maybe what you want to do is create all the boxes. So I'm going to go ahead and create one 1-inch box. I know I have a 3-inch box, so we'll go ahead and do that. And then I know I have a 3.5-inch box. Okay, 3.5 inches, 3.5 inches. Okay, so I have all my boxes. Now I know in 3D, the way it's set up is I have the 2-inch box to the corner of the top. So where's my 2-inch? Oh, I must have not drawn it. 2-inch box. There we go. 2 inches, 2 inches. There we go. So this thing, if I'm looking at the 3D view, or in your case, whatever's in front of you, you know that this is situated right here relative to the 4-inch box. Okay. And then the 3-inch box is to the left of it. So I'm just going to go ahead and move this to the left of it, the bottom left-hand corner of the 4-inch box. And then finally the 3.5 inches. Looks like it's situated to the left inside of the 4-inch box like that. Okay. And none of this is 3D. It's just 2-dimensional lines to represent what we see as orthographic flat drawings. Okay. And orthographic mean they're scaled. They're not perspective. So 4 inches is 4 inches in measurement. And then finally we have this 1-inch box, which is inside the 4-inch box. And you notice that there's a thickness. This is a 1/4 inch thickness for the representative of like a foam core box that's a 1/4 inch thick. You might have a different thickness, just kind of adjust it to whatever your physical thickness of whatever your object is, if your object has thickness. Okay, so I'm going to move this inside right here, but I know there's a 1/4 inch thickness, so I need to actually select this box, and I'm going to move it 1/4 inch away like this, so there's that spacing. That pretty much sets up the layout of the top view, and now we want to set up line weights and understand, what's hidden and what's not hidden and what we end up drawing, because there's a few more lines we need to add for hidden line purposes. Okay, you want to use line weights to help you understand depth. Okay, so that means that usually the heaviest line is the thing closest to your eyes in that perspective, or in that view I should say, and then the furthest thing is the lightest line. Okay, so if we use that logic, the thing that's the closest to us would be this 2-inch box. So I'm going to select this and I'm going to move it to heavy line weights. Okay, so that right there is now the heaviest line. We'll say the next one down would be, a medium one would be this guy, which is a 4-inch. So I'm going to move that to the medium, just like that. Okay, and then let's say the line below that, technically this object, if you look at it 3-dimensionally, is slightly lower. So in that case, to represent that depth difference, I'm going to move that to light line weight. Okay. And then again, it's hard to see here, but that's fine. Let's move it up. And then this one was sloping, and it's kind of difficult to represent sloping. I'll give you a few ways of how you could do it, but for now, simply I'm going to move this to extra light. Actually, for now, I'm going to leave it to line weight light, and then I'll adjust the things I need to adjust as we go. Okay, so for the most part, that covers it now. And then we have this which is the 1-inch box, and I know that's hidden, so I'll just go ahead and move that to hidden right now. Okay, so you'll get that dashed line. So the next thing we want to set up is the thicknesses of the walls. Obviously, I haven't covered that at all yet. And also this box right here hasn't been cut. I want to represent its cut after I draw the thicknesses, because you can see in 3D, you have this 1/4 inch where it starts to be chamfered off. So I don't want to go ahead and just draw a diagonal line right here. That wouldn't make any sense, because I'm not taking consideration of the 1/4 inch cut. Now, in your case, your object might look slightly different. I have no idea, but in my case, I want to be aware of that. Okay, So let's go ahead and change this line weight to something a little bit easier to read. Dark gray for now. I know we have another one that's dark gray, but that's fine. Now, what we're gonna need to do is consider thicknesses. So let's come up here, and there's a few ways of doing this. Now this is an L, right? So you could just kind of explode this line so it's not a connected rectangle anymore. Each thing is individual. And when you do that, what you can do then is kind of join this corner, this L. So now this is joined. You also don't need to do that. But the next thing I'm gonna do is just type the command offset, and it's at set to 1/4 inches if you see my distance. And then I just kind of click the inside line, and that sets it up. And you're gonna wanna move that to heavy line weight right there. And then the next thing you wanna do is you probably wanna split this line. This one right here, I'm gonna join it together so it's one continuous line, and I'll show you why in a second. So I'm gonna go ahead and type the command split, select this object, and select this line over here to split. And because this is actually lower, if you look three-dimensionally, this is a lower line. This line represents this kind of bottom face over here. It's a bit lower, so I'm going to change this to medium line weight, okay? So we understand that this top L is actually higher than this bottom L right here, okay? Which represents the kind of flat surface of the cube. And these are like the walls, okay? So that is a better representative of how it actually works. And then when we come over here to, if we're looking at this triangle, what I want to do is also explode this. And you will have overlapping lines, and it's up to you to kind of decide whether you want to delete them or not. Like for example, this line here is repetitive. I don't need it because it's actually the lighter line weight, so I'm just going to go ahead and delete it. Again, this is something that just takes time for you to understand how you're drawing lines in Rhino. And usually you don't want overlapping lines, so you just have to be aware of it. There's different techniques. I'm exploding the lines. And when I'm doing that, I'm getting kind of repetitive lines I can remove, okay? From here, you want to go ahead and create that thickness that we discussed before, so we know it's 1/4 inch thick. And from here, once I get that line, I'm going to go ahead and draw the diagonal from this point onto this edge. Go ahead and delete that. Now, there isn't a thickness at the bottom because the way this is actually modeled is, if you could see here, it actually doesn't have a face, so there's no thickness on this side. Okay, so hopefully that makes sense. So I'm going to go ahead and change this to, what do we say, the light line weight, change object layer, same thing here, change object layer. So that's light. Now these two sides, I don't need them. So we end up getting the L, and you notice I actually deleted this part right here. I'll undo and I'll just trim that line by selecting this one and trimming that right there. So that should be relatively accurate. Now this line right here, actually, we can't see it, right? Like you don't see that edge like you see the edge of these walls. So what you're going to need to be aware of is you're going to have to make that a hidden line, right? Because that's underneath, right? It's right there. You could see the wall thickness, but you can't see it from this top. You can only see it from that perspective. So that means you need to change it to hidden line. So I'm selecting it right here. I'm going to change it to hidden line like that. And that should be representative of that hidden line property, okay? So the next thing we want to do is draw a little bit more hidden lines that we can't see, and then finally get to this last cube, which is probably the more difficult one in terms of representation because you're seeing that angle. Okay, but first we know that there's a few hidden lines. We know that this box, the 4-inch box, has a thickness on both sides and on the back end right here. It has exposed face up front. So we have to consider that when we're drawing this. So I'm going to explode this cube. And I'm just going to go ahead and have all these selected. I'm going to click Control and select the bottom edge to deselect, just like that. And you can see the highlighted lines are this kind of U shape. I'm going to type join, and then that should join these three together, right? So these are all joined now. From there, I'm going to type offset. Okay, and I'm going to go 1/4 inch. Now what we have is this 1/4 inch thickness, which represents the thickness wall of the cube. And we're just going to select this curve like that, and we're going to change it to hidden lines. Okay, and what you'll notice is that you have an overlap of lines. This thicker line, which is a line for the 2-inch cube, is going to show on top of the hidden line, so you probably don't have to worry about it. If I'm being picky, I'll probably be trimming this hidden line off, which you probably should. So I'm going to select this. I'm going to select split. I'm going to split it right at this edge right here, like that. And then I'll select the hidden line right here. So this is the dashed hidden line. We don't need it in orthographic. Now you just have like 2 lines on top of each other. So I'm just going to go ahead and delete it. There's no need to do that. And that was a resultant of the process in which I'm drawing the thing in Rhino. You just have to be aware of these things. There's obviously many ways of doing it. Okay, so moving on to the next thing. I noticed that this 1-inch cube has a thickness, and so what you're going to want to do is just offset this whole thing by 1/4 inch, and that represents that kind of opening right there, and also it should be hidden line as well, so change that. So that's looking about right, okay? So finally we get to this kind of weird slanted cube. What we're seeing actually is the thickness right here. So if I just move it slightly, you'll see that it has thickness of a wall on kind of 3 sides, creates this U. So I'm going to want to create that in this case. And there's a few ways of representing it. Now, because it's slanted, you may want to represent the slant at a slightly lighter line weight. But for the sake of this drawing, I'm going to keep it simple and not do that. So I'm just going to draw a U. In this case, I'm going to draw a U rather than explode the original to just show you a different method of doing it. So I'm just going to select this curve and I'm going to offset. And I'm going to offset it 1/4 inch. Okay, and then so what I'm going to consider is I'm going to delete this. So now we have that. And I'm just going to draw a new line. Okay, now there's a few ways of doing this. I'm going to select these and I'm going to make it the light line weight. Okay, and I'm going to make this very bottom line, I'm going to make it extra light. And the reason for that is because it's the lowest of all our objects. If you see, it's like right here. So I'm making that line right here the lightest. And I'm making this whole thing just light. Similar to this one, I'm just making it light. Now, if I wanted to, I could go ahead and split this even further and just, let's say I'm going to draw this and I'm going to make this actually the light line weight. And I'm going to make these, the rest of them, extra light. You could do that as well. And that's just going to allow us to understand that this thing is sloping. I don't want to complicate things, so I'm just not going to do that. So you can kind of ignore that movement right there. I could represent this line right here. I think this is obviously the most accurate way of representing this because there is kind of this edge. So I would kind of have this, but it could confuse things. So you could just remove it as well and we understand it. But actually, I would keep it. I think that's more accurate because there is kind of an edge turn at this point. So in my opinion, I feel like this would be the more accurate way of representing it, even though they are the same line weight. But you just want to represent that there is kind of that edge lip at the top of that object. Okay, so moving on to the next thing, you want to kind of look at this in display. So that was our first object, or our first drawing, our orthographic drawing of the top view. So if you go to page 1, you'll notice that there's a few issues going on, right? Basically, the line weights aren't showing up and the colors aren't the right colors because I set the colors to black, yet they're showing up basically the colors of the display layer rather than the print layer color. Okay, so the way you want to fix that is go up here to commands and type print display like this. And then you want to change state from off to on. Okay, and that fixes it. Now, are the line weights perfect? No, maybe not, but they are somewhat representative of some of the ideas we're trying to get across. So you'll notice that when you zoom in, these are lighter than the kind of larger box to the right of it. You have this line, which is very thin. You have the hidden lines showing up. Again, you might need to make some adjustments. In this case, I just selected 4 line weight in terms of thicknesses. You have 1, 0.6, 0.35, and hairline. That might not be enough. You might want to add more. You want to adjust it on your case. Again, it depends on the object, depends on the size of the image and the drawing on the piece of paper. So it really just kind of depends. In this case, I made something simple like this, which I think gets the point across. Okay, so the next thing you want to do is create the next 2 side views. So the next one I'm going to use or draw is the one right below it, which will be a side view, kind of as if we're looking at the object from this view. The way I want to approach this is kind of similar. I'm still going to need to use the measurements and understand what's going on. Now, you may want to kind of draw these construction lines to get us to a certain direction. I'll actually draw it like this. I'm going to change it to construction line like that. And I'm going to copy it a few times because I know I have a 4-inch box. I have a 3.5-inch box. I have this box right there. Actually, I'm not going to confuse you. I'm just going to keep it simple, draw the first box and go from there. So I know we have a 4-inch box. Okay, so we have that box. I'm going to move it basically right here. That's representative of this box. Again, I'm looking at it this way, so I know I have a few other boxes. I know I have a box right here, which is, you can see where the edge would stop. So I know that the box would just go as far as this line. So I'm going to go ahead and draw a, what is this, a 3.5-inch box? No, it's a 3-inch box. So a 3-inch box by a 3-inch box. As we call them a square, not a box, I'm sorry. So right there, and then we got another one, 2-inch box or square by 2-inch square, and that's going to be right on top. Okay. And then we got the one inside. You can see it's right here. And if I created my construction line, you'll see this one matches right there, which means, I'll just draw it anyway, which means that this guy, this 1-inch box is going to come somewhere down to this point, right? So if I'm going to move these to construction lines, move those to construction lines, you'll see that the 1-inch box is going to land somewhere here. The height of it in the side view is not determined yet. I need to draw the 1-inch box or square to understand it. So 1 inch by 1 inch. And then I'm going to move this basically to where this line is. So the reason you draw the construction lines, you know it's going to match right here because that's where the profile edge is there. Now, if I went in ahead and I just moved this to the edge of this box, I'm not considering the thickness of the box. So that's where construction lines can help you, remind you if you made any mistakes, because I probably would have done that. So that tells me there's a thickness of this box right here. And then finally, there's the box at the very, very back. And we know that profile starts from over here. And I'm going to draw the line like that. And we know that it's going to be somewhere in this region. Move that to construction lines. I usually don't use the construction lines this much. Probably construct it if need be on some of the primary edges. I think this is overkill to a certain degree, but it is the proper way of doing it, the way things were drafted and engineered in AutoCAD. But in this case, it might be a little bit overkill, but you know, you should still learn how to do it properly. So the next thing you want to do is create the final box, which we know is 3.5 inches. And there we go. And we're going to go ahead and move this. I'm going to move it to the bottom left corner of this 4-inch box because I know that's where it's actually located. And you'll see that this construction line actually does line up to it. So we know that's done properly. So the construction lines help you understand that things in different views are actually aligned to one another because orthographically they are related, right? So that's why they're in alignment, and you could double check to make sure things are in the right place because the construction lines are helping you understand that. We want to do the same process in this view, which is set up the line weights, add the thicknesses of the walls, and then determine what things are hidden and what are not hidden. Okay, so we do have an angled wall, so we'll just go ahead and start with this one. I'll go ahead and explode it. Okay, I'll go quicker this time. I'll select this line weight. So there's a lot of overlap. You kind of have to figure this out. So it's right here. I'm going to go ahead and offset this by 1/4 inch. That line that I have probably doesn't need to exist anymore. So I'm going to just go ahead and delete it because there's a lot of overlap. The next thing I'm going to do is draw the diagonal like that. Now, I think there is thickness here. Yeah, there is thickness. So you'll notice that what I just did is incorrect because there is a thickness. There's that kind of chamfered edge. So what I'm going to need to do is just delete that. I'm going to go select this line. I'm going to offset it. And this is going to be one of our hidden lines because you can't actually see it when you're looking at it like this and kind of a side view. So it will be a hidden line, but it's here to help me determine where that diagonal goes. Okay, so draw that in. Okay, and then I'll go ahead and trim this overlap because that doesn't actually exist, and I'll change these to hidden lines. And then I'll go ahead and trim what I don't need, which is these two edges. Okay, and this construction line will have to come down here now. Because it's the front facing, as you can see in 3D, it's the closest thing to me. I'm going to go ahead and change these lines. I might as well just join them, and I'm going to change them to the heavy line weight. Okay. Next up, we'll do the next heavy line weight, which is this kind of 4-inch box. And I'm just going to select everything, and I'm going to move it to the heavy line weight, just like that. Now, we do have this thing behind us, which is this angled object. I know that thing because I can't see it. It's hidden, so I'm just going to move it to hidden right off the bat. Okay, so we'll just kind of understand it like that. The next thing we see that's right in front of us is the 1-inch box. I'm going to move that to heavy. Okay, I'm going to move this construction line slightly up so it's not in the way. And then this thing up top is slightly pushed back, so I'm going to go ahead and change this to, I'm going to move it just to light because it's slightly the furthest back. So I'm going to go ahead and change this, change object layer. We might need to adjust it later, but for now, that's what I'm keeping it as. So the next thing we'll see is that the box has a thickness to it. So we're going to need to kind of draw that. So I'm just going to go ahead and offset. Actually, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to explode it. And I'm going to go ahead and select the 3 lines I need, which is this one, and this one. Join them together, and then I'm going to offset. Okay, so when I offset this to 1/4 inch, that'll be the representation of that thickness. And I'll go ahead and I will change that to thick or heavy. So now we're starting to make sense of what we're seeing. I do know that there is more hidden lines, right? in this box. So I'm just going to simply go ahead and do that. I don't need to explode it. Another way of doing it is just kind of just drawing a line like this right on top of this vertical line, and then just moving that line basically a 1/4 inch. It's another way of doing it. Type mirror because I know it's, a square. I can go to this midpoint and just mirror it, and I'll have that hidden point. So move that to hidden and call that a day. We have this top object, and I'm going to go ahead and actually I'm going to move this to medium, and then we'll adjust it as need be. So I'll go ahead and I'll actually explode to break the pieces apart. And then I'm going to move this construction line slightly up because it is in the way. Now, what we do see is we have this kind of L, right? You have the L right there. So we're going to want to grab the L pieces and just join those so we can offset them cleanly. 1/4 inch, and we'll move this to the medium line weight. Okay, so the reason I move it to medium line weight is because this back face is actually slightly further, so that will be the light line weight, and the actual this L section right here will be the medium line weight. So again, selecting these, probably joining them to make it cleaner, and then type split will ask you for this cutting object, and you'll just select this right here, and then you'll grab this L you just split, and then move it to light line weight. Okay, just like that, you should be good to go. All right, and then finally, you want to be aware of what's happening in the back right here. And for the most part, it's pretty simple. The only thing you want to consider is this thicker line. Otherwise, it's set as it is with this profile. So all I need to do is, well, I'm just going to draw the line here just like this instead of exploding it because there's really no need to. Select this line and then move it 1/4 inch this way to the left, and then changing that to hidden. Okay. And just like that, we got it covered. So that considers the thickness of this box right here. Okay, so that's pretty much all that I can see at first glance. You typically want to go ahead and make sure everything is proper, that you didn't miss a hidden line. I might have. If I did, then I'll take a better look. I think we got all of them. Yep. So now we go to page 1, the layout view, and we'll start looking at what we got. Some of these lines look funky. It's because we were scaling them when we were moving them. I'll just go back here to perspective, and I'll just scale 1D. So you're scaling something in one direction. Select the 2 points, the length of it, and I'm moving this down just like that. I think this one was kind of goofy as well. Scale 1D from this point to that point right there, so it's all aligned. Okay, so go back to page 1, and so when I zoom in, you'll notice that there is that dashed line. If I go ahead and change this to a larger dash, now if I change it to dash, the spacing is slightly bigger, but it's not the correct line, I believe. I think you typically want to go with the center line like this, but it might create a thicker line that you want. It just becomes kind of distracting that way. For now, for the sake of the drawing, I'm going to keep it to this type of dash, just so it's clear, okay? So that covers 2 drawings. How you create a side view from the plan. Now you're gonna do the same exact thing for the last side view. You're just gonna have to be aware that this side view is gonna look like it's tilted. Basically, the way it's gonna appear is as if I took that drawing and I tilted it and I leaned it that way. Now, this isn't the proper drawing, but it'll look a little bit more similar to this in terms of the way things line up. And I'm gonna quickly draw it and not present the exact step-by-steps. I'm just gonna draw it and you can see how it gets done. All right, so that should cover most of the hidden lines. Again, I'm just going to select this and rotate it again so you can kind of understand what we just drew. Move it to the side right here. You'll notice that, again, we have the 3 boxes on top of each other, this big one 4-inch, 2-inch, and 3.5, I believe. And then you have the hidden lines of the 3-inch inside here with its thicknesses. You could see that it's got this U shape that's coming up in the top line for it, which doesn't have a thickness. And then you have the smaller 1-inch box, which has thicknesses. Again, there's a lot of overlapping. So if you watch the video, you see me deleting some lines that are overlapping. That's the better way of doing it. You're going to prevent any print line issues or issues in the way that you're modeling in your workflow. Just better to delete flat lines that are overlapping. Okay, so I did that, and you can go ahead and do that yourself. And the top view has this L, which is basically the thickness of this bottom piece right here. So I dashed it in the thickness of this side wall, which is this one right here, right? So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to move that back. And that's the proper way of usually drawing it. Okay, so you can add some more construction lines. Line went like that. And that pretty much covers most of that. Okay, there is an additional auxiliary view you can add to this, which I'll go over in a different part. So if we go back to the layout view, you'll see the line weight should be set properly. You'll see that these are kind of the heaviest line weights. This is the thinner one, or slightly thinner from the kind of main facing ones. And those are your two side views and your top view. You typically want to label these things so it's not super confusing. But again, I'll go over annotation and page layout in a different tutorial with the addition of an auxiliary drawing. But for now, I just wanted to set up the main top view and the two side views because it might be difficult for a beginner to just kind of conceptualize this and then put it on paper. I don't want to add the additional how do you set up the layout with construction lines in a way that makes it look very nice in addition to the auxiliary view. And I'm pretty much going to leave the video at that. If you have any questions, let me know in the comments below.